YouTube. We're on. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our September 7th committee meetings 2021. Special welcome to all my fellow councillors, all present. We have our CAO, Rob Philpott, with us, and our Director of Finance is off tonight. And welcome, Colin McLean from the Journal Pioneer. Great to have you here. And we have our MLA, Trish Altus, with us tonight. Welcome. And our directors, we got a number. We have Mike Tasuska from Economic Development. We have their engineer from Tech Services, Aaron McDonald. And we have our acting police chief, Sinclair Walker. So I guess that's everybody. Welcome to all as well. Welcome to our viewing audience on YouTube and to the members of the media watching on YouTube. So we will start the first first meeting is Technical Services Committee. Oh yeah, the agenda. Well, we didn't get to, that's at the council meeting, I think, isn't it?
No.
Oh, okay, that's for this one. Go ahead.
I would just like to amend the police service item, school resource officer funding. It's already been approved and it doesn't need to be on the meeting tonight. So,
Okay.
thank you.
So is there a motion to approve all the agendas as amended? So moved by Councillor Snow and seconded by Councillor Adams. All in favor, say aye. Contrary, nay. Motion carried. Thank you. So we're back to Tech Services. You have the floor, Councillor Durand, sir.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. I guess I'll just get right into it and call Tech Services to order.
Sorry, I'll have to apologize because
Please
right
do.
behind your head, I didn't see our fire chief there.
Oh,
Ron Enman. Welcome, Ron.
just wandered in. Technical Services Committee, one item on the agenda this evening, and I believe it was kind of spawned out of a concern that Councillor McFeely had. And that item is accessing Water Street East from Small and Bay Avenues. So I will, I guess, just turn it over to Councillor McFeely and he can summarize that item and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I think it's a concern really that I think both myself and Councillor Adams share. Certainly she has a number of residents on Small Avenue and I have a number of residents on Bay Avenue. We'll certainly, I think we've talked about this before, it's certainly an issue with residents up there accessing Water Street, and I've had a couple of calls in the last few weeks on that again. So I'm certainly not putting it on the table tonight for decision, but I think it's something that maybe we can ask staff to take a look at what some of the options might be. I think the issue is more acute in the summer probably, and certainly more acute during the the morning, afternoon type of traffic. No more required, I don't think today, Mr. Chair, than if the meeting agrees to ask staff to take a look at what some of the options might be and what the cost of each of those options would be, and something we can perhaps consider at budget time. So I don't know if Councillor Adams has more to add to that.
No, it's, thank you, Councillor McFeely. It's just something that I had brought up before and had been brought to me continuously. Small leads into Woodridge Park. So in addition to the streets leading up to it, there's hundreds of homes up there as well, and it's only the one way out. So when it's an emergency thing as well as a safety, specifically when you're heading west onto Water Street East, there seems to be some danger, and plus we have a great new crosswalk there when we got that problem semi-solved, so now we just have to get the traffic out. So that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could I make just a comment on that too? Because I had gotten a number of calls both on Bay and Small. And one lady told me she counted 55 cars went by before she could get out, and that happens quite often. So I agree. I think come this fall, budget time, we're going to have to look at that because those areas are really developing, which is great. And there's another one going there with Starlight, I understand, is filled or sold out the lots. So if the lots are sold, there's going to be people living on them. So council will consider that this fall as part of the budget. Thank you.
So
Yeah, I definitely support looking at it. I wonder if it's, just, you had mentioned, Starlight, also being sold out. I wonder if a bigger picture, just the whole stretch there, doesn't have to be looked at for, we know it's growing, and so we should look at the whole stretch as opposed to just fixing one and here and there, but I'd say there's probably some definite work that needs to be done along that stretch.
Coordinate the lights.
Right, yeah, make sure it's all working.
And I guess, Mr. Chair, if it's agreed then that we would get staff to look at what some of the options might be and expand it to the whole stretch. Is there a timeline that we can apply to that, a reasonable timeline that staff can report back to council? Preferably before we get into budget conversations, because once we get into that, there's hundreds of things to look at. So is it reasonable that we could hear back from staff by the end of November? Is that reasonable? I'm asking you, Aaron.
Sorry, I was just taking some notes. I guess I just want to clarify what we're reviewing. You had mentioned, I guess someone had mentioned, is coming out of these locations, one had mentioned going westbound. So it's the traffic. Okay,
East.
that's why I'm just making sure, because what we're. Okay,
Turning left coming out of those is the big issue, I think. But, yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
yeah, anywhere, really, any parking lot, any
Yeah.
road on Water Street, it's tough to turn left. But
Because, like, you have to realize and people in St. Clair, they find it hard to get out as well, but the thing is that if they're finding it hard to get out, they just go and they swing around to the lights on Hillside, and then that's
Yeah, they-
easier, or they drive down to get off of Ross, right, if they're heading out.
They have an option.
Yeah.
These two streets have no option. And there's a couple on the other side there too, that Dory View,
Right.
going left is an issue for them, so.
but again, as they mentioned, when Dory View went in was to provide a second exit. If they're experiencing in the peak times, hopefully a few times they do it, that they'll go back to the signals at Hillside on Dory View, or I guess we're calling it Dory View,
No,
oh yes, probably.
the old trailer park.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is a challenge to get out of there on left, the same as they
Yeah.
mentioned on some of the parking lots, but
So perhaps a look at that as well might be something that we should do.
Okay.
So, and I guess is.
and I guess the other part then is that internally, we're not the traffic experts to come up with a long vision of an overall review of more than just one intersection. We're either looking at, if you're getting into that sort of thing, we're looking at hiring someone to do a traffic review. If you're talking 4 and 5 intersections, that stretches of 2 kilometers, and what you're trying to do there, we have done something similar. What we'll report back to you is that that's when we first started off with the east-west. We went through and looked at various options. Do we widen? Do we double left? Do we try and maneuver? That was based on the volumes that were at the time and 15 years ago, and they based on the volumes that were there, and then they projected ahead at a certain rate of increased volume. Whether we're asking someone to review that now in the same document, but that's not we've heard from that review and got their recommendations, and we've tried to implement those recommendations into our overall official plan for corridor as well as any developments that have happened. But again, we can certainly look at those key, the intersections themselves are the busier ones where we could actually try and get someone to do. I'm trying to think when we did the left turns on Water Street, what we did for a review there to warrant whether those left turns, if it included those side streets or whether it was just on Water Street. I'll have to go back and dig through
Yeah, I just think it's,
the literature on those intersections when we done those reviews.
yeah.
Mr. Chairman, wouldn't we, through you to Aaron, wouldn't we have a traffic count on the traffic on Water Street East pretty well?
Yes, we try and collect it every year on those
So-
main streets every year.
The reason I mention that, it wouldn't be too big a job for somebody, whether you have to get somebody to do it or not,
Yeah.
to determine, and the traffic count coming out of those those new full subdivisions, so it, you think this would be calculated on a traffic count if we wouldn't have to
they
bring in
actually-
somebody from Ontario or Chibougamau.
Well, it's the ones that have done the last ones have been the branch here in Summerside of WSB have done them for us. As
Yeah.
far as they actually put up a video camera, and they actually then digitize the video to get the actual counts of how many are right and how many are left. And yes, you could have all, as I mentioned, you know, how much delays there are. It's not just the straight numbers. It's what's the actual delay in each one and how long the delay is.
That's good, then you'll have the information back in November, I believe you said.
No, I didn't say. I said, that's what the question was asking. Is that based on the question? As the longer we went, the question got into here, and if we're into reviewing information that maybe they have already done, we can certainly have that for you, but I can't commit to them and when they may be able to do that. We haven't asked them, right?
Thank you.
But just thinking it through a little bit here, it seems to me if we already have some baseline information, even if it is a couple years old, we know the issue has become more acute, that we could use that information to inform our decisions as opposed to having engaged somebody and spent a lot of money to.
And that's what I was saying. I know we looked at the left turn last year, the year before. I'm going off memory there. I think we did look at the warrants for the left turns on Water Street itself, but I have to dig through those reports to see if that information is in there. Yes, it's a lot easier for us. And then to come back with a budgetary number for budget time,
Perfect. I'd like to get a look at the options and the numbers before budget time.
Yeah.
So that we have time to think about it before budget, so.
A number of years ago too, Councillor, and Bruce, you were probably here, and Councillor from Coleman, North Granville Street, we had all of those businesses coming in there left, right and centre, and I think it started out with ones that had lights someplace, but we found afterwards they're busy at Ryan and along other areas up there at Walker and a couple in between. So I think it's gotten to the same situation here, and even if we started out with one or two, you'd have some traffic stoppage, at least to get some people in and out of their subdivisions. But anyway, we'll leave it in your capable hands to have information brought back, and thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, well, I guess if there's no more questions or concerns or comments, we'll close it there and end out the Tech Services meeting for this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Drawn. Economic Development, Councillor Brian McFeely, the floor is yours, sir.
I thank you, Your Worship, and we will call the September 7th meeting of the Economic Development Committee to order. We have two agenda items, so we would ask for a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor Durand. The first one is the future rezoning or restricted uses, or whatever we want to call it, requests for within the industrial park. And we had talked about this a little bit, I think, when we had the last restricted use request come through, and said perhaps it's time to have a little discussion within council what we want that industrial park to look like. Because we have approved probably 3 or 4 restricted uses in there within the last number of months. Those spaces have taken up about 30,000 square feet of space within the industrial park for really what is non-industrial use. So we thought it was time maybe just to have a brief discussion within council on sort of what we wanted the future to look like. I know the Economic Development Department is stressed with a number of requests I think they have, and Mike can speak to this, but probably 3 clients right now looking for significant square footage that we don't have within the park. So anyways, I thought we would put that on the agenda, begin to have that dialogue and see what council's wishes are around that. So Mike, I know you have an opinion on this, and so it kind of turn it over to you to give some background.
Thank you, Councillor. And indeed, it's a great time to be in Summerside with all the development taking place, and I think what we've been tasked tonight, and I'm going to walk you through a few slides, is just maybe to give you a little more perspective on what's happening, at least on the industrial commercial side, and some of the challenges we're facing. And talk a little bit about, I'll call it some of the constraints and then some of the limitations as we try and entertain new development and those challenges that obviously impact other departments. So obviously, I'm not gonna read the first slide, but just talks a little bit about what economic development is, the challenges we face operating in a competitive environment. And while certainly we're not adverse to kind of trying to grow the community, we certainly have a mandate to focus on industrial commercial, as does council from 2019. So just as a quick snapshot, when you look back on an annualized basis in the last number of years, in 2019 is when we instituted the kind of, I'll call it the goal of increasing our commercial assessment. Summerside has certainly done very well in terms of trying to grow investment. A lot of this investment you're seeing on this slide is actually what we call retrofit investment. So there has been a whole lot of new industrial and commercial space brought onto the market. What it is that new space is actually, or the existing space is actually being absorbed. And so, certainly while we, back in 2019, had suggested that we wanted to focus our attention on growing the commercial assessment, industrial assessment, we've done that. And as an analogy has been used is, we were selling a lot of used cars, and now we're out. And it's time to look at trying to figure out how we can bring some new stock and new cars onto the marketplace. So back in 2019, council of the day decided that we wanted to try and figure out a way to focus our energies and our assessment growth. And what we had said back in 2019 was that we want to grow from 18.6 to 21% of assessment growth. And if you saw the slide before, you can see that we've had, a 76% increase over those 3 years, but our assessment split has actually gone down. And the reason that's gone down is we've actually absorbed over 50-some thousand square feet of space in the community, but you're not gaining any new assessment in a substantive way. And most of the residential that's coming on the market is actually superseding what's happening in the industrial and commercial space. And so we'll never catch up to that. And that's become a problem. And when we talk a little bit more about, I'll call it the physical space, you'll maybe see that a little more clearly.
Mike, back on the previous slide there was quite an increase in institutional.
That was in 2017, so that was probably
221.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I'd have to go back and look at institutional. We track all 3 categories, so
Yeah.
I don't know specifically what the projects are that made up that institutional investment. I'd have to go back and look, but I can get that for you.
Thank you.
So obviously, from our perspective, economic development's perspective, there's certainly a higher benefit to our municipality when you look at it from, I'll call it a pure tax revenue perspective. So in order for us to carry out our activities and services that we provide to the public, business obviously pays more. Typically, economic development tries to attract what we call the export-based business sectors so that we can continue to grow the economy and we continue to provide jobs, and therefore drive other parts and sectors of the economy. And obviously the stronger and more diversified the community becomes, the stronger and self-sustaining we become. So specifically looking at this slide, if you were to take any new assessment in commercial or industrial or I'll call it residential, you can look just purely economics at what that does to the bottom line of the community. So the value of attracting $1 more in commercial and residential, or commercial industrial, leads to about a 60% increase in revenue than municipality. It's just something, as I say, as we try and grow the economic base here and some of the challenges that we're facing over the course of the last year anyway, they've become heightened with some of the decisions that we're making as an organization, taking what we call employment building stock out of circulation for us to facilitate growth. So back in 2018, when we started talking about kind of how we're going to grow the assessment, we had a surplus of space in the market. And so anybody that came to our office looking for space, it was easy to give them, I'll call it space to look at. At one time, we have a real estate tool that we track all the real estate in Summerside. We had a total of about 81 listings on any given day. we're down to less than 20 spaces on our website right now in terms of industrial space. So if you look back in December 2018, we had a vacancy rate of, anywhere from 7 to 14%, which is fairly healthy. Today, down to August 2021, we're down to single digits, so 4% retail, 4% office, and 1% in industrial vacancy. And again, decisions we make based on the best information we have, but part of the challenge that we've seen in the industrial park, and it's even broader than that, is we've taken over 30,000 square feet out of circulation based on some of the current, not rezonings, but restricted uses, which therefore limits our ability to attract investment and service that investment that's coming. So one of the most important tools that we have in our toolbox is available space that doesn't exist anymore in Summerside, and that's becoming a huge problem and frustration for our department.
I know this is industrial and retail vacancy, but even residential, when it's sort of, I think that is about 1% as well.
Yeah.
What's that?
The
So
diff-
it sort of,
And the difference between kind of when you look at, I'll call it residential and non-residential, is there's a lot more actors in the residential sector. So there's a lot more home builders because it's an understandable market. I build a house for this cost, I can sell it for this price. There's not a lot of actors left in Summerside other than the city that's de facto taking on, I'll call it the industrial role. So obviously there's a vacuum that was created back a number of years ago when SRDC was disposed of. And we've stepped up and tried to play that role. But unfortunately, the return on investment for an industrial and commercial investment is a longer term window. And there's not a lot of what I call actors wanting to play that role in terms of investment.
but one sort of looks after the other. 3 or 4 years ago, the vacancy rate for residential was a lot higher. The same with these.
Yeah.
Now they're both coming down. When you bring in the industrial, it changes the residential as well, which is, I guess, the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah, so right now, and I think my next slide talks a little bit about it. This is one snapshot of the client base that we're dealing with today. So economic development has a number of, I'll call it, processes it goes through to classify clients. And it goes everything from a prospect to an actual lead. So we currently have about 81,000 square feet of known demand coming to Summerside in industrial, 24,000 in office, and 104,000 in retail. And that's just from the immigrant investment. We have no place to put these people right now. You can see kind of the additional need and the shortcoming in Summerside. And if I know people have a perception about immigrant investment, we're quite bullish on immigrant investment. If you look back at our over the last 2 years, we've had 81 new businesses open up in Summerside, absorbing over 58,000 square feet of space. That's not any new space, that's just existing space that we were able to facilitate other owners moving in. And again, you couple that with some of the things that we've done in the last little while, and not just us, but others, and you take inventory out of stock, we can't service this client base. And this is just one aspect that we currently have 3 other, as Councilor McFeely said, we currently have 3 other clients looking for around 30 to 35,000 square feet, and we're struggling to find that space. And it,
Would those be through the TNP?
no, these would be,
Is there local, or not local, but through other?
2 of them are local businesses looking to expand and grow. And another is a client that we've been working with for a number of years that's looking for space, and isn't COVID being what COVID was and did, is now kind of, they're now reinvesting and re-looking at opportunities in Summerside. But again, the biggest challenge for us is where are we gonna find the space to put these people? And that is becoming a bit problematic. It's a good problem to have, obviously. A lot of people wanna talk about downtown. Downtown's basically full. The last number of years, downtown has been a net beneficiary of a lot of investment. So when you look at all the business buildings downtown, and on here, you'll see a list of all those buildings. Everything from Holman's, which is basically 100,000 square feet of office space, is fully leased or committed to. The what we call the HQ building, which is downtown, is 100% full. So every one of these buildings in our downtown core, in essence, is filled. There's not much left in the downtown core from a leasable space from that perspective. which is, again, it's a good problem to have, but when you're trying to service clients from a just-in-time perspective, it becomes problematic and challenging for us. Here's some of the clients. We struggle sometimes answering calls, and we're very proactive, we're very positive, and we do our best to work corners to find different opportunities, but these are what some of our clients are saying. So we're a small company in an automotive industry focused on green energy. We're currently based in Summerside. We're struggling to find new space for the last several months. Despite working with our office, any possibility has not been a good fit for us. Summerside is where we started our journey, and Summerside is where we'd rather stay, but staying takes space, and we're running out of options. And this is a direct relation, or this situation was a direct result of some decisions that a number of people made in terms of trying to reposition a property. Another client says we're a manufacturing operation currently operating in Summerside, employing 7 people. They've been searching for space, but haven't found anything suitable. Our workers are Summerside based, so moving away would be hard on us from a labor perspective. We'd much rather stay in Summerside instead of moving or closing entirely. I want to access warehouse space in Summerside. There must be something I can do. We're a multimedia company trying to grow an international opportunity and struggle to find quality industrial commercial space. Our business has been, we're looking at 30,000 square foot film production operation employing 10 people, and we can't find shelf space in Summerside. And if Summerside is where we want to be and we want to hire some young people, you know, point blank asked us, are you guys trying to attract young people or not? So these are, I just want to give you a sense of some of the challenges that we as a department are facing in terms of trying to service some of our clients. We've been successful, hugely successful. We've taken up pretty much all the inventory that's in existence in Summerside and filled it. And now we already know that we have this pent-up demand of close to 100,000 square feet in industrial alone, and we can't fill it because we don't have anywhere to fill it. The Eco Park's going to take some of that pressure off, but we're going to have to invest in that to make that happen. So one of the things that Councilor McPhee and I talked about a little bit was, what can we do about it? How can we kind of take a step back, continue to service these clients, but look at what long-term, some of these decisions that we're making, how we can ensure that we balance kind of some of the challenges we're facing in the industrial commercial sector. So one of the things that we've been exploring, and I've had a quick conversation with planning department, is to initiate what we call employment and lands assessment. And what that I think will help us do is make better judgments on kind of going forward to ensure that we have the proper inventory, we have the proper stock, that when rezonings do come in or restricted uses come in, that we're making perhaps more detailed decisions based on those uses. And from our perspective, we're just trying to protect the existing building stock at a minimum until we get what I call caught up a little bit. And then planning and economic development have a bit of differing opinion on this next recommendation, but institute a more robust test of rezonings of industrial employment building stock until we can get kind of, I'll call it the employment lands assessment completed. So you currently use and staff use, and I'm not suggesting that the tests that we use to allow for rezonings and industrial uses is not a good test. I just think there's an opportunity maybe to go back, revisit that, and maybe institute a more stringent tests to give you guys better information that helps us maybe make more informed decisions, I'll call it, about our industrial rezonings that take place. And then finally, establish a formal strategy and policy specifically when converting employment land/buildings to non-employment uses. And again, it's just about an extra test and an extra gate post to make sure that we're making the right decisions. I think, as Councilor McPhee and I have discussed, the decisions we made, we're not critiquing them by any stretch of the imagination. They've happened, and they've happened for good reason. But what I think we're asking from a department's perspective is for council to suggest to economic development and/planning is, let's go back and take a look and see if we can't bring a more robust look at some of the decisions that we're making so that you're better informed.
And Mike, if you don't mind,
Yep.
I think that's exactly why we have you here tonight, because we had to make some decisions, and we were really unsure whether we should make them without at least hearing from you. because we don't have the whole picture on what's going on. And so when you sit here and explain that to us, and that's why everything was delayed, is because we wanted to hear from you. And, you know, I'm not sure what's happened in the past, but all I know is moving forward, I don't want to be making decisions that I'm unsure about.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming in and explaining this to us. And I certainly appreciate it, and I think everybody else does as well, because we were all kind of unsure on, you know,
And to
where,
be honest with you, Counselor, thank you for those comments, and to be quite honest, we were unsure as well.
right.
But I think sitting
Working
back, sitting back, we didn't do a better enough job communicating with planning, and I think we've kind of straightened that out a little bit. But what we've seen over the last several months is what I call this erosion of our industrial stock that is
Right.
making our job harder and harder.
Exactly, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
we
and
don't want to
really-
do that, so.
Really,
thank
it
you.
wasn't an issue in the past because
Yeah,
the
we didn't-
supply far outweighed the demand. It's just the
It's an
last
issue,
number
yeah.
of months, really since this council, the last year, 18 months, there's been this creeping. There was one. Oh, well, one's not bad, then there's a second one, and next thing you know is what, 30,000 square feet
Yeah.
used up.
We don't want to
Uh,
give that away.
And
Yeah,
we
I
just
get that.
need to
Yeah.
be more informed when we're making decisions, and I think Mike has laid it out really, really well, so.
Yes, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
I guess what I'm wondering about is the fact that whenever we do a policy review, is there anything in our policies, for example, as Director Mike, you've explained this, is there anything in our policies that we need to take a look at to make sure that we're not overstepping one stock area with another? Also, you know, I continue to talk about our development agreements. I think there are some things that maybe we need to look at that in a policy that would be really important, as there's a lot more things happening that would just really safeguard us. And I don't mean to put a, you know, to put a bottleneck on it, but just as we hear and learn about these things, we need to be aware of them so that when those requests come in, we have an idea, and we should have that in the policies.
Yeah, I think that's some great commentary, and I'm not a planning expert by any stretch of imagination, so I think what we discussed with Thane of the planning department is this employment land study might be a good first step for us. Excuse me, and then look at, as we move forward, how to, as you mentioned under the policy review side, is look at kind of the whole process that we do go through, so this might be that first step, I guess, and, yeah.
Thank you.
No, that's it, I'm all done.
I just had a quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry,
That's
Carrie.
all right.
Councillor Adams?
That's all right. I just had a quick question. So just so we're all on the same page and anybody watching, so is this referencing, you're talking about like industrial space getting used up into, for businesses and so on, like taking up that, say that 30,000 that you said was sort of taken away, right? It's gone now. It's used for other things. But is this also land that's getting rezoned, or are you talking about existing, like?
So- Yeah, so right now I'm focused solely on, I'll call it building stock, so actually
Okay,
physical
okay,
building.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, that's what I was wondering. I was wondering if we were
Yeah, and
delving
but the
into
employment lands assessment would also say, based on a number of things, and again, I'm not a planning expert, but based on a number of things, what's your projections of population, what's your employment growth? Do you have enough zone land to support your ambitions? And that's part of the study that would take place.
And this should never be misconstrued as being, having a concern with the ones that have been approved. I mean, those were great projects, going where they were going because they had nowhere else to go. So, you know, we certainly don't want to, you know, sort of throw water on those, because those, you know, those are approved, they're moving forward, and they're good initiatives, so.
Yeah.
Councillor?
No, I just wanted to say that it's a real eye-opener, and thanks, Mike. But, you know, I think there has to be a lot better communication between planning and economic development on future things coming forward, so we'll all have the facts all at the right time, so, thanks.
So I guess for tonight then, if council agrees, the recommendations are in front of you, and I guess maybe kind of given the Economic Development Department, the Economic Development Committee, the license to continue to move forward to try to achieve some of these recommendations. The first step being the employment, what was your
Employment land study.
employment land study? So we seem to have consensus on that, so unless there's any further questions regarding this particular thing, we'll move on to agenda item number 2.
So agenda item number 2 is kind of, I'll say dovetailing, I don't have a formal presentation for this, but it's kind of dovetailing on presentation 1. The department is going to be going out to RFP on the sale of the Venture Center at 180 Greenwood Drive. We're going to see what's out there in the market right now for that building. We currently have several inquiries into leasing that space, and we have an appraisal done on the property, so we know what it's valued at. And we've been working on an RFP, and we're going to go issue that to the market to see what comes back. That's not suggesting that we go to RFP, somebody submits a price that we're going to instantly sell it. It just means it's going to allow us to see what's out there should we want to sell it. We as a municipality have not invested in that property in the last 10 years, and I think it's time that maybe we let the private sector to look at options for redeveloping that. By doing that, there will certainly be some ramifications that you should be aware of. Obviously, we use it for municipal storage, which is not the best and highest use of that property, obviously. So community service, municipal services will have to find, if we decide to sell it, space for their storage needs. As well, there is the makerspace that's in there as well. We've had several meetings with makerspace folks. We basically donate space to them. We have suggested, if indeed we do end up selling it, that we would work with them not only to find them new space, but also help them find some funding to continue on being a going concern. And the last area that would probably be impacted would be if a proponent was actually to make a successful bid on that property, that we've typically in the past donated our parking lot for GST parking, and that could be in jeopardy should we move forward with selling it. But given some of the challenges that we're facing right now in the immediate term with specifically 2 clients who have expressed an interest in that property, the fact that we're limited in the availability of the property we have, and the fact that we're not investing in that property, we think the timing is right, at least to test the market to see what's out there to sell that property.
So any questions from council?
Just one question.
Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you, Brian. Just what is the size of that property out there? Mike, do you have any idea?
The building is roughly 9,000 square feet, sitting on just a little over an acre.
Just a little over an acre. Okay. Thinking about the parking and the federal government and.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about this, I think, at budget time too, that it requires a significant investment, and, one of 2 things has to happen here. Either we dispose of it or we are prepared to invest in it. So this is sort of the first step in getting a sense of what might be out there. So. Councillor Snow.
I'm just wondering, right now there's all the green infrastructure dollars going around for making existing buildings more environmentally friendly. In the process, should we be looking at that? Because obviously if we do sell this property, we're going to need to find more property for our community services, municipal works. So we might be just creating another issue down the road that we're going to have to invest in anyway. So I think we need, like everything else, make sure we have a real good picture of it, other than just the fact, are we getting enough money for the building, but what are the next steps for municipal service, community
I think
services,
that's part of the decision-making process, to understand what all those ramifications are.
Yeah.
Any other comments, concerns, issues? If not, we would give Mike the authority to move forward with his plan to submit or put out an RFP to see what interest there may be in the place. Agreed?
Thank you.
We're good. Okay. And that concludes the Economic Development Committee agenda. Your worship?
Thank you, Councillor McFeely. Okay, we'll continue on with the agenda. Police, fire, and emergency services. Oh, there's only one item on it. Okay, sorry. Okay. I didn't mention when we opened the meeting, I'd like to also include their Deputy CAO and Director of Human Resources, Gordon McFarland, was with us when the meeting started, and I didn't peek around the corner far enough to see him over there. So welcome, Gordon. So, is that the end of the committee meetings? Yes. Okay, so we'll call a special council meeting to order, September 7th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the agenda for the special council meeting? So moved. Moved by Councillor McDougall and seconded by Councillor Duran. All in favor? Contrary nay, carried. Okay, the first item on the agenda is resolution.
I have it here, Your Worship. I have the resolution here. If people could excuse me, I have my sunglasses that are prescription and I have to wear them, so I'm not trying to be cool. I just can't see. So I will read the resolution, COS 21-154, dated September 7th, 2021. Moved by Councillor Ramsey and seconded by Councillor Adams. Be it resolved that the City of Summerside CAO allow an inspector to enter upon the property situated at 114 Merriam Drive, PID number 558650, in the City of Summerside, and have the property brought into compliance with the requirements of the City of Summerside's dangerous, hazardous, and unsightly premises bylaw, CS-11. This cost is to be initially borne by the city and invoiced to the owner. As well, council directs staff to utilize all legal means at its disposal to effect a permanent solution to the ongoing unsightliness of the property.
Moved by Councillor Ramsey and seconded by Councillor Adams. You've all heard the resolution. Any questions or comments? No questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Contrary nay, carried. Thank you. Okay, that was a short one.
Yeah, there was one more item on there. It's the approval of special council meeting minutes on June 1st. At that meeting, there were a number of resolutions passed. The resolutions that were signed and what was read was correct, but in the minutes, there were a couple of zoning amendment numbers that were incorrect. So the province just asked that we reapprove those minutes as corrected there.
As tonight, you mean?
Yes.
So we do that with a resolution or a motion?
Just a simple motion.
Okay,
If someone wants to move and second.
okay,
And the minutes are attached there now.
okay. Go ahead.
I'd move the special council meeting minutes of June 1st, 2021 be approved.
Moved by Councillor McDougall and seconded by Councillor Duran. 3 hands up here, all at the same time. Pardon? All in favor, say aye. Contrary nay? Carried. Okay, we're moving right along here. Are we finished? Can you believe it? And there's an item for the committee of the whole, but do you want to take a 5-minute stretch? Yes. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting? Moved by Councillor Adams and seconded by Deputy Mayor. All in